Welcome back to Black Music Scene, brought to you by the Black Orchestral Network. I'm your host, David Norville, and today we're sitting down with four members of Decomposed, a Chicago-based chamber music collective honoring Black creativity and culture through the music of Black composers. And here on Black Music Scene, of course, we're here to honor and preserve the stories of Black classical music. So very excited for this conversation. Let's go ahead and meet today's guests. So we're all here, ready to dive in. One by one, I'd love to hear from you all. Please tell us your instrument, where you're from, and what first drew you to music.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Edwards. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, but I am based in Chicago, Illinois. What first drew me to music? I grew up in the church, so like singing in choir, leading solos and everything. But eventually, I transitioned into violin through a nonprofit program going into local Birmingham city schools. So I've always loved music, and it's nice that I'm able to express myself through violin.
Right on, welcome.
I guess I'll go next. I'm the second founding member of Decompose. My name is Tahirah Whittington, and I play cello in the ensemble. I am originally from Houston, Texas, currently living in Chicago. And I come from a musical family. My grandmothers played piano and organ in churches. My mother was my general music teacher at my Magnets Elementary School. And she taught the whole school. She taught third grade chorus and then would go home and teach private piano. My dad is a saxophonist. He played with Duke Ellington and Mercer Ellington, taught band. So I come from a very musical family. And the story goes that my brother started cello before I did. My mom would observe that I would go pluck the strings if he, was leaving his cello out after practicing. And so when I was old enough, around 4 years old, I got mine. So it's been my fifth limb ever since.
Hi, my name is Khelsey Zarraga. I'm one of the violinists of Decomposed, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And my background is actually Black and Venezuelan, and so I grew up hearing a lot of different kind of music in the house. My parents are not musicians, but my mom would always play, of course, Black music throughout the years, and I also was singing in church as well. And then my dad would listen to a lot of salsa and merengue, and so I was able to have like a lot of different kinds of influences in my music making, which was really, really awesome. And I eventually found the violin through my school and I never looked back. I was like, this thing can fit in my pocket. I love being able to carry it around. So I stuck with it ever since.
My name is Wilfred Farquharson. I'm one of the violas in Decomposed, and I grew up outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I kind of came to music through, I used to always watch like Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry cartoons. And I first heard the music of Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker in their Christmas special for Tom and Jerry. And I just wanted to learn that music so bad. I joined my school's orchestra program in the fifth grade, and the teacher brought out the violin, viola, cello, and bass for us to choose from. And I just never heard of a viola, so that's why I chose it.
Wow. I always love to hear um, our sort of musical origin story, right? The things that from a child kept us coming back to picking up the instrument and learning a little bit more or wanting to share with others around us. So thank you so much for sharing. I would love to shed a little bit more light for our listeners on Decompose for those who are maybe not familiar or just maybe now coming into the fold. Really, how Decomposed came together, what it is, and its mission.
Absolutely. Corey Coleman, our executive director, pretty much put out a cold call email to someone she felt aligned with her, just her wanting to have Black music and Black musicians seen throughout the year that just wasn't Black History Month. She went to a concert during February and it showcased Black composers on the program. And she's from an at HBCU. She went to Spelman and she kind of was just like, wow, I don't know anybody on this program. I don't know the composers on this program. And there must be other Black people like me who's starving to learn more. And so she was just like, I am going to do something about this. And so she put a cold call, basically emailing people, and Yelly Taylor, who was our first violist and artistic director, answered the call. She said, they said they really aligned with what Corey was wanting to do. And so Yelly reached out to all of the musicians that they knew in the Chicago area. It didn't necessarily need to be string players. They reached out to all the instrumentalists that they knew that would align with this mission, and it just happened to be a string quartet that was available and interested. And so that began 9 years ago, in 2017. And we thought it was going to be a one-off. We thought it was going to be a one-off performance that we did at the Currency Exchange. That's no longer the Currency Exchange in Chicago on the South Side. And we've been going since then. Our mission is to highlight Black composers, Black musicians, and to debunk those stereotypes that these traditionally classical instruments can't be played in certain ways, that certain people can't be called composers, that certain audience members can't express themselves while listening to this music in the ways that they should, or ways that they feel most comfortable. And so, yeah, that's what we're about.
I guess what made Decompose a different experience for me from the very beginning was the intentionality of the intention. Like everything was done with intention, from the programming to the physical programs, the decor, and also the idea that as an audience member, you don't have to walk into this space and just be stoic and still. Like, you can still express yourself. Like, you're part of this experience that we're all creating. And even for the kids too. People expect for kids to go to a concert and just be still for like an hour, and that's not realistic. And so we welcome and we celebrate, everyone that, comes to our shows.
It's beautiful.
If I could just add to that too, one of the best things about the group is that we're all Black. And I think all of us had experiences when we were studying where, at least for me, there were times where I would be the only Black musician in the whole orchestra at school. I had never played with other Black musicians in a string quartet until maybe grad school for me. And so that part of it too, the audience piece of it, we get to make all of this impact. But I think also in our rehearsals, being together, we get to make an impact on each other. That's really, really special. Like, we've really become a family through this. So I just had to highlight that because I think about that all the time.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in your branding, in your message, and even some of the ways that you design some of your programming too. It does feel like it is a space for, of course, connection and community. It feels like a healing ground in certain ways too, and that's just so powerful. I kind of want to maybe put some energy or weight on something you just shared, Khelsey. I think there are a lot of Black musicians who, upon deciding, hey, I want to be professional, go through a set of experiences on that road. I'll say it that way. I'm wondering now if maybe we could talk about not necessarily the negativity of those experiences, but some of the sort of life lessons or values that we've sort of clung to in spite of. So thinking about someone feeling like their voice wasn't heard for many years playing an orchestra, and then decides to create a project where others can lift their voices, things like that. I would love to, if we can sort of draw connection to that, to some of our personal artistic missions that we have. Yeah.
I think for me, I've had experiences playing with collectives that featured Black musicians, but it was always, let's play the standards, let's show what we can do, let's prove ourselves on this, classical standard music. And the great thing about Decompose is that I don't feel any of that. I don't feel like we are proving ourselves on the standards, on the classical, uh, works that everyone knows and, we grew up on, but and gets recycled and revamped, but it's the same old thing. And I just love that Decompose seeks to play music that's of our time. We do highlight our ancestral music, absolutely, and give reference to that. But we also highlight the things that bring us joy on a day to day, whatever genre it is. And that's the one thing that really just stokes my spirit, because I'm not having to stay in this box where Black music is concerned. Black music means so many things, and we're able to express all of it on our instruments. And so that's a big thing for me.
I think for myself, one of the things I love about Decompose is how much we work kind of horizontally or laterally around us as far as the artists we collaborate with and how we uplift and highlight each other in our programming, as well as, the communities that we want to go in. One of the reasons why I still am a musician now is that kind of I think about 2 years after I started viola, my family couldn't afford me to have private lessons anymore. And I went and I begged every teacher in my county to teach me, and nobody would. But somebody, I just told my story to another woman who was an educator in a different county in Georgia. And it was a Black woman who heard about it named Lana Avis. Like Lana Teco, now she got married. But she taught me for free for a year. And she was so bent on getting me into this program called the Talent Development Program through the Atlanta Symphony. That was for Black and brown kids in Atlanta to get lessons, get resources to actually pursue a career in music. And so much of what we do in Decompose reminds me of like that similar work ethic where Lana was really like, you are going to have a career in music if that's what you really want. And I'll make sure of it because I won't let another like Black boy not be able to do what he wants and fall into something else. Um, but that sort of like mission and super intention work is so aligned with what we do in Decompose now. From our kids programming, we have storytime series, we have family edition programming, and we also go to schools and also now like host kids at the land school where we make sure they do see people doing this art form, doing it at a high level, doing it with music that reflects them, and also not in some random ivory tower that is hoity-toity and full of a bunch of random white people, but is a space in their neighborhoods and their communities, and they can feel actually valued.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. When I think about the ways that a lot of Black-led organizations lead with heart and lead with community and are a lot of times focused and designed around this idea of paying it forward, this idea of protection, this idea of continuity. And there's such empathy and kindness that comes out of that. And Wilfred, to hear about the kindness that you received or just having someone who is at least trying to look out for you and paying that forward now through the work that you do is it's just so important. And it really just brings tears to my eyes. Thank you for sharing. Can we talk a little bit more about some of the programming, some of the day-to-day? I would love it if we could get a visual of, what does the work look like? Who are the folks that we talk to on a regular basis? Who are some of our audience members or community members? What are they like? Yeah, please, anyone who wants to jump in would love that.
Ooh. Our audience is Black, and we love that so much. You can tell, whether they're Black children, like Wilfred was talking about, or they're young Black professionals in their community. I love that we offer experiences that give them a chance to just be and just rest and just exist, whether it's with Trisha Hersey from the Nat Ministry, whether it's with Jamila Woods for our listening field program. You can just tell in some of the feedback and responses that we've gotten from people that they are really feeling like this intention that Caitlin was talking about is directed exactly for them. One thing that I think about a lot in kind of like dispelling the, maybe stereotypes or what people think a violin or a Black violinist can do. One time we were playing at the Auditorium Theater here in Chicago. And it's a really, really big, theater with thousands of seats. And we did an arrangement of a Destiny's Child song as an opener for this other group. And that was just life-changing to me because the audience, they were singing along. You've got thousands of people. And I saw some video clips where people literally were saying, I know that song. Like that, okay, I can vibe with that. Like, and just to feel that energy that they saw themselves represented. I mean, people talk about that and maybe they feel like it's a cliche, but it's not. That's our reality. And we need to see ourselves represented to feel like it's for us. And so when we talk about our audience, that's really what we are thinking about. No matter the age range, we want you to feel like we made this for you. We did this for you. And we're together in this experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback on Kelsey's statement there, I just recall our playing at the Museum of Contemporary Art, and we're supporting an exhibit there, and we may have played Meek Mill on strings, and there was this gentleman that came up to us afterwards and just like, oh my God, he was so moved, like spiritually moved that we were playing Meek Mill because he's so identified with that song. And I don't know if Caitlin can recall that moment, but he just was just in awe, that he's hearing something that touched him deeply from like life. So we're glad that we can offer that to our audiences, and they in return give us the feedback and give us the energy that we need to continue doing what we do.
Yeah, and you mentioned programming earlier, David. We do a myriad of programs. Wilfred mentioned our family edition programs, our collaboration with storytellers. We collaborate with hair artists and artists of different mediums, meditation. I remember our first decompress program was with someone who taught trap yoga. And it was amazing. Like we were able to play all these arrangements, but also couple them with classical works by Black composers, incorporating that. What else do we do, y'all? I'm trying to it's a myriad of different programming.
We have
And
our decomposition that we collaborate with storytellers and poets. We showcased our past Chicago Poet Laureate on that, along with like revered elders in our community who are poets and storytellers. And so that's always special.
actors.
Yeah.
Miss Cheryl Lynn Bruce, we were able to work with her for kind of reviving Black theater at the Whole House here in Chicago. I mean, it's so many
With each other,
things.
too.
Yeah.
Like we compose and arrange our own works and get to perform them with each other, for each other. So we get to interact with each other in different and special ways as well.
The intentionality part was spot on. Like you could, from first time I was on your website, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, these are
Yeah.
some, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I wish Corey
Nice.
were here with us because she is so adamant about just making sure that even our color palette,
Yeah.
on our messaging and marketing and website is just so cohesive. She's about these brown tones of skin and okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earth
You
tones,
know.
like she don't
Yeah.
play. She don't
It's
play.
just
No,
wonderful.
yeah, she is about that for sure. But that comes from her background as a strategist as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
she's an
definitely checks out.
expert
Mhm.
at branding and marketing and strategy.
Yeah.
It definitely comes across.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you see, this is a bad comparison, but it's almost like when you see like a child and the child's like really well taken care of, like
Yeah.
moisturized, clothes look great. Like that's what it's like. It's like, wow, you
Not
have
That
great
hair is
ashy
job.
at all.
greased.
Yeah, like whoever's in charge here, they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
doing
she's
great.
about
They're doing
that.
great.
And she's about collaborating
awesome.
with people who have that vision for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, our photographers, like she handpicks our photographers and
Mm.
the
Our
people,
videographers.
videographers, the designers of our t-shirts,
And
That's so
every
There's
great.
that.
collaborator.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wilfred.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. Like, if she feels the vibe isn't right for a collaborator, she'll give it the chop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she'll say no, and
Yeah.
that's so
Yeah.
important. Like I've learned a lot from watching Corey, and that was one of the biggest things, to say no to an opportunity that doesn't align with the mission, even if it seems great on paper or, can propel you in one way. If it doesn't hit that community focused work that we do, then we don't
Yeah,
do it.
we don't do it.
That's so powerful.
And we don't see it as a loss. We don't see it as a loss.
Mm-mm.
We see it as a actual like a lesson
Mhm.
and a gain for our just collective wisdom moving forward.
Mm.
And yeah, and we do that, move forward.
You're listening to Black Music Scene, brought to you by the Black Orchestral Network. Today, we're in conversation with members of Decomposed, a Chicago-based chamber music collective centering Black composers, music, and community. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Black Music Scene podcast. I'm David Norville, and today we're talking with Decomposed about creativity, collaboration, and building meaningful musical spaces in Chicago and beyond. So I want to jump right back in and talk a little bit about the creative process and the collaborative process that goes into the work that you do. I know you play your instrument, but I'm sure that there are other things that you bring to the collaborative process that are so meaningful and contribute to the projects and the work that you do. So maybe we can start in the rehearsal hall, in the practice room. What is the sort of musical selection process like? And then even being in rehearsal settings, how does that go? Yeah, if you could paint a bit of a picture about what that looks like, I would love to jump into that.
Yeah, I think it's our programming and our curation of all the programs is all very like concert dependent. Every concert's a little bit different than the last one. For example, we did a performance at the Center for Cottage Grove, which is a queer community space for mostly Black residents in the Cottage Grove community down the South Side here in Chicago. And we curated a concert of mostly Black queer artists or artists that celebrated queer people. And we kind of did a mixture of things of people that are that. And one of the things that we do is we have composers that people wouldn't always consider composers in traditional Western classical music. Like we featured Montero by Lil Nas X, as well as Damian Jeter and his Neo Soul String Quartet.
Yeah, as Wilfred said, we really do tailor our programming based off of the storytelling that we're trying to do for each concert. For our collaboration with Trisha Hershey at the Nat Ministry, that is all about rest and restoration. So, we pick music, we might play something by Florence Price, but then we'll also play some India Ari, we'll play some Jamila Woods, just to get people in that spirit of resting. And we'll play covers and arrangements, and then we'll also sprinkle in, some Daniel Bernard Roumain or other composers that are, composing maybe more string quartet specific writing, all Black composers. But then we'll also weave in, text by prolific Black poets and authors and civil rights activists. And so we like to come into the brainstorming. We always have like a brainstorm for our concerts, and that's very collaborative with all the musicians. We share our ideas based off of the storytelling aspect, and then we'll bring in the collaborator once we've kind of settled on music that sounds good. Sometimes we'll share the music in advance with our collaborator so that they can use that to inform their storytelling component. So it's very, very mixed together, very collaborative. And we always make sure that whoever, the collaborator is that's not a member of Decompose specifically, that they are open to not just saying, okay, I want to bring a string quartet in to play my stuff. No, we are creating something new together. And we always all of our collaborations are like that, which is so special. Decompose is the first place that I've been in where that is the case.
Wow.
Something I wanted to add about our rehearsal process and like this concert curation, I remember what I was going to say now, is that we literally will chop up pieces of music and also piece them together. So that's also something we do in our like actual rehearsal processes. So we may take, the end section of the first movement of the Rosa Parks Quartet and then mash it with, Tahirah's love transitions piece that she wrote herself and figure out actual like harmonic transitions that work seamlessly to either further punctuate or emphasize the rest of the concert or the text that we chose to go along with that piece. So it's a lot of like actual like piecing things together from different pieces of music that I don't think you find super often in classical music spaces.
Yeah, there's so much there. There's so much that you're sharing, and it just energizes me because what I'm hearing is such relevance. What I'm hearing is such function and connection to it's like I'm hearing this and hearing about this programming, and you'd never think that, you know, that with stuff like this available and thinking like this, that people would be still questioning or wondering like the relevance that classical music can have, so-called classical music, or like these instruments could have. It's like when you think about those spaces that might find it more difficult to embed themselves in community or connect with community. In my opinion, I think that there are ways in which they're just unplugged. They're unplugged. They're not connected to the experiences of people, what they need, what they're hungry for. Decompose comes along with such human-centered design, community forward thinking, as well as like really excellent like musicianship to think about, okay, here's the feeling that we're trying to conjure and the vibe we're trying to create. What is the theory that goes into us getting there? What shifts and changes and modulations do we need to make in order to accomplish that? Wow. That's just amazing. I love it. And to me, it signifies not only what's possible, but what is right now and what the future can be too. I want to talk a little bit more about the design, the thoughtfulness, the intentionality. Talk to me a little bit about Miss Corey Coleman. Uh, Talk to me a little bit about the wonderful insight and experience she brings, the thought, and some of the amazing things that she brings to the fold with Decomposed.
I am in constant admiration of Corey Coleman. One of the things I love most about her is her own the way she holds herself accountable. There are two distinct moments that she's talked about and shared with us that I always kind of call back to when thinking about her. There was a moment with an audience member that she was talking to about our presence on the South Side. And the audience member was like, "You're on the South Side? Well, I've never seen you. I've never heard of you." No, kind of took her aback, but she was like, "Okay, then we have to work hard to be even more present on the South Side." And definitely since then, we have had, a very, very strong and consistent presence on the South Side. Um, because the important thing about, actual community engagement is not just going there one time and leaving, but it's actually building a relationship with the community. And in order to do that, you have to be there consistently. And we've done that. Another moment with Corey is, I think it was from one of the first decompressed events. It used to be always like, more of an active yoga and music concert program. But she observed that some people would come in and just lay on the mats and kind of relax and listen. And she realized that there's more of a need for spaces people to come and do that and be grounded in music that reflects them and heals them rather than like doing, White Lady Yoga. And so in a lot of our decompressed programs now, the focus is on giving Black people a specific space to process trauma, process even happiness, anything. And we take them on this journey where you are just encouraged to lay and rest and relax. And we encourage snoring and literally falling asleep because people need spaces to do that. There are places where, at home, you may not feel safe. Our Freedom Lullaby series that we do with Trisha Hersey, so many comments that we get afterwards from our audience is that, they have not felt safe before until that moment. Um, I think it's brought all of us to tears at some point, including Trisha and, us on stage during those moments. So I think that's so important and really calls back to that humane aspect of Decomposed that is always present and that Corey also really emphasizes.
Yeah, my observations with Corey is she's relatively new to this space and she has made it her determination to be of service and to just get on the page of learning what the musicians need, learning how she can be a leader in this space, and she's done that beautifully. I always say, wow, this is the missing piece that people needed when forming chamber music groups in conservatories and music schools. You know, they need somebody who has a business sense, who has a corporate background, who can move in spaces that we wouldn't even think of moving in, who's collaborating with people we haven't yet touched. Having Corey at the helm of Decompose has been a benefit because I've been in spaces that I would have thought to be in as a classically trained musician. And those spaces are community spaces more so, and working with collaborators that I wouldn't have thought to reach out to. And that means photography, means music directors of pop musicians. So we've been able to collaborate with people that may have been initially out of our space and bring them into the fold and make it a part of our heart space, seriously, where service is concerned.
If I could add super quickly, one thing that I really admire about Corey is that she's incredibly patient. She always says that things will align when they're meant to. And she is not afraid to say no to an opportunity. And I think that musicians that are coming up, or even musicians that are established, there can be a scarcity mindset. There can be fear-based decision making where you think, okay, I need to say yes to this so that I can, move to the next step, or so that I can achieve XYZ thing. But Corey never strays from the mission and from the intention. And so if there's an opportunity that maybe on paper seems really good or could promote our visibility, but is not mission aligned, is not going to feature Black composers or feature us in the way that we want to be featured, she will say no, and she'll respectfully decline and just say, this wasn't for us, but the next thing that comes along will be for us. And I think that that is a huge factor in the success that the group has seen so far.
Yeah, I've said from the very beginning, Corey is a visionary. So many things that Decomposed has done because of Corey seeing us in these spaces and also seeing that we deserve to be in these spaces. And also, just like Kelsey mentioned, this scarcity mindset that we have as musicians. You work so hard in conservatory and you work all these hours playing with XYZ orchestra only to get like a small paycheck and like, oh, this is all I deserve. But Corey, she really sees beyond that and sees, the work that we put in and the work that we continue to put in and who we are as individual artists and, that we are deserving. We deserve to thrive. Yeah. Shout out to Corey.
Here, yeah, this is like the missing piece that a lot of chamber groups need. But it's also, important to think how rare a wonderful leader like that can be. And so I wanted to just sort of throw it back to each of you one more time to give one final note about your work with Decomposed and what you're excited about for the future.
I can go first. I'll just go to like my work with Decompose so far, I guess kind of a summation of it and one of the things that I love most about it. One of the things that I love most about Decompose is that as someone that joined the group, I didn't need to come in as a finished product at all. I feel like everybody on this call can attest that I have constantly moved up and playing about every way with the group. But I think it's because one, it's one of the first times we're playing in a professional ensemble. I actually felt safe and like I wasn't going to be kicked to the curb for not being absolutely perfect or like because of my race, there was like this extra scrutiny on my skills as a musician at all times. I think that allowed me to experiment more with myself and also expect more of myself just for like artistry's sake rather than like survival's sake. And that itself, I think, has been such a transformative and healing process for me as a member of this ensemble that I would not get anywhere else. So yeah. And thanks for having us.
Of course.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about, we talked about how we program and how we are in the rehearsal room with our collaborator building a new product, but we didn't talk about how we are in our rehearsal rooms. We are ourselves, point blank. we are ourselves. We express ourselves how we would in our own homes because we're with our family. We're with our chosen family. And so we cut up, we dance, we sing, uh, we get the work done probably more spiritually because we are ourselves in that space, and then we bring that spirituality along with our technicality and along with our musicality to our audiences. And but it starts because we are ourselves. It starts from being ourselves in the rehearsal room. And thank you so much for having us, for having this conversation. I think more conversations like this need to be made public. We talk amongst ourselves this way all the time, but I feel like more and more musicians and people in the music field need to be aware of these kinds of conversations on a public forum. So thank you so much for having us.
My pleasure.
A big thing that's coming up is that we're performing Michael Abel's The Lights and Dances as soloists with the Civic Orchestra of Chicago. And that attests to another reason why I love Decompose so much, because one moment we can be performing with Chance the Rapper and Jamila Woods, and the next moment we can be on this classical stage and doing the thing. So that's coming up. We have another Freedom Lullabies with Trisha Hersey for Juneteenth. We have another family program at Harris Theater, this time with Shanta Naru. But it's refreshing and just really cool to be able to talk about Decomposed after 9 years and to be featured on Black Music Scene. So thank you so much, David, for having us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I would just say one of the things that I want to encourage people with is that you do not have to settle in your music making, and you don't have to settle when it comes to how you impact people. I think that, Tahirah and Wilfred and Caitlin, we've all touched on this, but we have created something together as a family because we're able to show up as ourselves and be Black in so many different ways. The way that I express my Blackness is different than how Caitlin expresses it, or Wilfred, or Tahirah, but we all accept 100% the way that we show up in spaces. And that is what has enabled us to be able to move through the world in the way that we do and show our audiences that they too can move through the world in this way. And so I'm just grateful, y'all. I'm grateful to Decomposed, and I'm grateful to you too, David. Thanks for having us on your show.
So grateful. Loved it. This is such an exciting time, because right now it's so difficult to turn on the news or even go on social media and see all that's going on. But one of the things that I heard recently saying, one of the many reasons Black history is important is because it is the strongest documentation of like anti-fascist and anti-authoritarian. It's like the blueprint, and it's riddled, Black history, with community building and finding solutions to the greatest hurdles through community and a little bit of design think and a little bit of, elbow grease and a lot of love, And so it reminds me of the Angela Davis quote where she says, "It is in collectives that we find reservoirs of hope and optimism." And that's what I'm feeling left with now after this conversation today. So much hope and so much optimism to know that there are folks like you out there who have created a wonderful world for us to exist and live and be free and find healing. And so thank you. Thank you to everyone who supports and loves and is involved with Decomposed. That's it for today for our episode of Black Music Scene. To learn more about Decomposed, go online to decomposed.com and follow them online, keep up with them, and show them some love. I'm your host, David Norville. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Black Music Scene. We'll see you next time.